Hi, Kelly.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Bar Talk on December 15th, 2021. Looks like we've got a great turnout, over 50 people here today. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is our final Bar Talk of the year. Fret not, Bar Talk will be continuing on a monthly basis next year with a new host. My term is coming to an end. Frank Bishop is stepping into my shoes as MSBA president. He'll be here in January to take Bar Talk forward. As always, if you have ideas for folks that you would like to see on Bar Talk or hear from, or information that you want to make sure gets passed along to you through Bar Talk, please make sure you let Angela or Frank know. Now, if you do email me, I'll definitely pass it along as well. We have our guests here today are Aria E, Executive Director, and Julia Sheridan as Bar Counsel for the Board of Overseers of the Bar. Aria and Julia, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. So what we're going to do, I'm going to pretty much open up the program to them. They've got some updates and some information to pass along to you, but we'd love to have your questions as well. So feel free to throw your questions into chat, where Angela or I will pick them up and share them with you, Aria or Julia, if you guys don't see them. And then we can also, we've got some questions that came in prior to this meeting that we'll go through as well. But please do use this opportunity to ask any questions that you might have of Aria or Julia. So with that, I will turn things over to you, Aria. Take it away.
Great. And Kelly, I can't believe it's already the end of your term.
I know.
How did that happen?
I can feel the power slipping through my fingers as we speak.
Wow. I mean, it'll be great to work with Frank. We'll still be working with you as a past president, but man, if there's one thing COVID did, it just sucked the time out of each of these couple of years, right? Or maybe some of y'all don't feel like that, but for me, it certainly feels that way. And it's great to see those of you whose faces I can see. Great to see you. I know most of you, but if I don't know you, I'm Aria E. I am the Executive Director here at the Board of Overseers. I've been here about 16 years. Been working with Angela and Heather for many of those years. Hey, Steve Mogul, I love the waves. Okay, great. You know, right now, and I think most of y'all's questions are going to focus on CLE. It is all about the CLE here for us at the Board of Overseers, at least in my department. It's not necessarily in Julia's department, though from once in a while she probably hears me let out a scream when our database doesn't record something I needed to record on the CLE side. But in any event, before I get to some of the CLE questions, I wanted to let y'all know of a few things, which is something we launched and we're at the tail end of this, and that may be helpful to especially solos and small firm lawyers, is our law office management program. And I think at some point the MSBA is going to loop into that. I recall that when we had our original discussions, that was the plan. So I know Angela and I have talked about that. For now, we're doing it with it's our office working with Red Cave Consulting, which is Jared Correa. And for those of you who've been tuning in for our monthly law office management brown bag CLEs, Jared is just wonderful. I know Angela's met him. He's presented for MSBA programs with me and others throughout the last couple of years in any event. But what's important about it is because of his partnership with us, and I assume later on with the MSBA, he is giving discounted rates to Maine lawyers to help basically help you fine-tune how you're running your offices, which couldn't have happened at a better time than during the pandemic. We were not planning this for the pandemic. It just happened to be the time when we launched it, Jared and I, but he's the perfect guy that you need in a pandemic. He's definitely my bunker guy. So keep that in mind if you do need law office management services, whether it's dealing with a virtual workforce, cybersecurity, which is going to be our next topic on Friday. Jared and I will be talking about that. Or software, hardware questions, trust account questions. Those of you who have changed your careers and maybe now are using and managing a trust account for the first time, it's not as easy as probably your office managers at your firms made it look like. So all of that is important stuff to know, and Jared just has a really nice delivery. As I said, though, it is extremely busy right now in our office because of the CLE deadline and, excitingly so, our new database that will be supporting our CLE program. So if I have not, for instance, let me just fall on my sword right now. I imagine there's some of y'all who are waiting to hear back from me or perhaps David Morse about your CLE questions, and we're working as hard as we can. David is our CLE director. It's just him in that department. I'm his backup. So I will get to you. And if you want to give me a hairy eyeball and you're on Bar Talk right now, go ahead. I deserve it. But here's the important parts, is that you'll be able to file your 2021 CLE report online at our website starting on January 3rd. I know there's a question of whether you can upload certificates to the website. You cannot do that. With our new database and our new website, that still is not a feature that will be functioning. It's just not a functionality of software that we have been able to attain. Having said that, though, it is in our it's on our wish list for our new database and our new website, so they know we're asking for that. And pursuant to Bar Rule 5, E, like Everglades, your report has to be filed no later than February 28th at 4:30. And so you'll do that online on our website. And what that means for you is that you have, yes, you need to attain your 12 hours by the end of December 31st. But, and this is a big but, you actually have a grace period that's built into the bar rules. And so you've heard us talking about that before, but we get a lot of questions on it. You actually have until February 28 to earn and report hours for 2021. So what that means is if you earn and report most of your hours between now and February 28 that you need for 2021, that means the rest of from March till next December, you'll need to focus on 2022's hours. If you're exempt from CLE, the time to claim that exemption is when you file your annual report, and you'll do that again by February 28. And if you believe you may be qualified for an exemption, check out Maine Bar Rule 5D, like dog. Typically, that's active duty military, that's judicial law clerks, that's judiciary. That also concerns practitioners who have practiced in Maine for 40 years or more and are not practicing full time. And there's one more criteria, and are over the age of 65. So that you may qualify for an exemption. Doesn't mean you still can't do CLE. From a professional development point of view, we all benefit from CLE. It just means that you're not required to do it and report it. And so I talked about the grace periods. This is something that the MSBA, the trial lawyers, NBI, who else? I'm trying to think of MACDL, other CLE providers that I'm not thinking of. We all want you to know this because it's an administrative issue for the providers, and I want to make certain that y'all understand that once you take a CLE, once you participate in a CLE, let's say legal year in review, it can take up to 30 days for large rosters like that to be able to be tabulated and sent to our office. So you're not going to see your credits in 2 days. It's going to be more like a month. Having said that, if you do it with a provider, a sponsor, particularly these local ones that do apply ahead of time for accreditation, and then they do all the work for you. They send in the rosters to our office. If you were there and you took it, you will be credited. No delay will be attributed to you. The rule does allow CLE sponsors like MSBA to have up to 30 days to report, because there is some administrative work on the back end after they present you with the CLE. So not to worry about that. And because of the grace period that I talked about, which is the end of February, please don't be alarmed if you did a course in December or January and it's not appeared on your transcript, you know, by the end of the calendar year, or, you know, 10 days later in January. I really want to make sure that folks understand that there is a process, and the providers, MSBA is a great example of that. Follow that process to a T, and it works really well. When they have presented the program and they were the sponsor, you don't need to separately send in certificates. They're handling it for you. There are, and some of you have noticed this, that there are some providers, and I'm aware now of Stratford is one of those providers, that is not applying ahead of time for CLE credit. In other words, they're putting on programs that they're not following the bar rule and applying for credit ahead of time. That's a business choice that they're making because they don't want to pay for the application fee that's required by Bar Rule 5. I just use that as an example because it was recently brought to my attention by one of our members of the bar. That's certainly Stratford's choice, but what that means for you, and I'm just going to use Steve as an example because Steve Mogul's in my frame here. That means that if Steve takes a program that the sponsor, let's say it's Stratford, did not apply ahead of time for credit, when Steve wants to receive his credit, he's going to send his certificates into David. He can copy me, that's always fine. But unfortunately, Steve's the one who's going to be absorbing the cost of that application fee because Stratford has made the decision not to do that. So I've gotten a lot of questions about that from bar members, and I want to make certain that y'all know, especially if you have contracts with them or if your firms have contracts with them, that that's something that you should be taking up with those sponsors. And I would encourage you to use sponsors like the MSBA, the trial lawyers, MacDill, who do apply ahead of time for the credits and take all the busy work out of it for you. And the cost of applying for your credit is not passed on to you. You pay for the cost of a program, and then everything else is taken care of. Those are all that. None of that is new. We've fielded a lot of questions here. None of what I've just described to you is new. It's always been in the bar rules. It's just what appears to be new is that some CLE providers, like Stratford, have decided not to apply ahead of time. They've opted out of that process. Okay, back to your CLE credits. If you have excess ethics credits or harassment and discrimination credits, they will automatically be applied to your general credit requirement. So any excess H&D credits can also be applied toward your ethics credits if you needed them, okay? General credits can never translate to ethics or H&D. One important thing, ethics and H&D credits do not carry over to the next year as ethics or H&D. Okay, so you have to earn those every year fresh, but they will carry over as general credits. So I'm going to use Karen Boston. Let's say Karen's got 6 general and 4 ethics, and 6 ethics. She's fine, because her extra ethics credits will all fill in that general deficiency to give her 12. And she'll start off in 2022 with no carryovers, but she's earned everything she needs to because her excess ethics or her excess H&D went towards the deficient amount of her general credits. And if you've earned more, if Karen's earned more credits than she had to, which is 12, she can carry over up to 10 general credits into the next year.
Aria, a quick note on that. I see
Yeah.
on the website, when you log into your account on the overseers of the bar, it doesn't automatically do that for you, right? So for example, I have excess H&D hours and a deficit of general credits, and it's not automatically showing that the H&D are filling into the general. So you'll have to do that computation on your own.
Okay, yes, that's right. So and that's what you'll see. So exactly what Kelly just said, that that you'll just see the math there. So as long as, and if y'all have heard me talk about this before, you know I call the ethics and H&D like your ace card. I don't play a lot of cards, but as I understand cards, ace is like the best card, right? So you can use it for anything. So your H&D and your ethics is your ace card to make up the deficiency on the general. H&D is like the ace plus of it, you know, and then ethics just can't translate to an H&D. So I know that the MSBA is doing a lot of H&D programming between now and the end of the year. I'm sure you'll do some in January as well. Angela and Heather and Linda, if you're listening. I want to address something else that's come across as a question. The Bar Rule 5 limits the number of self-study credits to 5 per year. So the most common type of that credit is on-demand video and audio replay of past CLE events. So just keep in mind, if you've already taken more than 5 self-study, you can carry the extra self-studies up to 5 into 2022. So the 5 self-study credits you can carry over is part of, but not in addition to those 10 that I talked about earlier. So I tried to cover as much as I could about CLE, but obviously if you have questions, you can follow up with David Morse, our CLE director, who's an attorney that some of you may have met when he was at Pine Tree or in private practice in Portland or at Disability Rights. You can always follow up with me as well. As I said, we're trying our best to answer questions. And, you know, if there's some lag time, I apologize for that. We certainly aren't intending to have that lag time. But as you can imagine, we have a lot of questions we're being asked by our bar members, as well as many members of other jurisdictions who are looking to come be admitted by motion here. And let's see, are there questions? I'm looking at the chat.
Yeah, Aria, you've got a question here. Will the H&D credit requirement for next year, 2022, be permitted by means of a live webinar as opposed to an on-demand webinar?
Great question, Jeff. If I may call you Jeff, I can see you in my frame. Hello there. Yes, so we still, as far as I know, I've not seen the post-pandemic order from the court, but the H&D in-person requirement for H&D program, which is the only type of credit hour that is an in-person requirement, that has been suspended or deferred through 2022 because of the ongoing problems with the pandemic. So you will have some conferences like what the MSBA is doing for their winter conference that will be hybrid. And then you'll have a lot of virtual programming continuing on. And I don't know about y'all. I mean, obviously I want to see y'all. I presented at the Workers' Comp Summit with some of you who may have been there live. We did it all outside at the Samoset. That was great to be with everybody. It's going to be great to see those of y'all who are appearing in person, but I'm also very cautious as well. And so what's great about virtual programming is that we can have, 500 people on a program. And people aren't traveling from Presque Isle and having to miss the Winter Bar Conference because they can't make it work with their trial schedule. So that is a nice feature of having had to pivot so quickly to virtual programming. But yes, Jeff, the H&D credit requirement can be fulfilled by virtual programming.
Aria, but it does have to be live.
It does have to be live. Thank you. It does have to be live, which
meaning live streaming as opposed to a pre-recorded.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Thank you, Kelly. It can be. The optimal is live streaming because then y'all get to interact with each other as we've done, like when we did Bias in the Jury live with Justice Alexander and Dr. Peary. People were able to ask them right off the question. There are programs that you can that will be pre-recorded replays with a live moderator. And so that moderator will be able to answer questions about the H&D program. And to the extent that there are those available, you'll see them on, providers' websites, including the MSBA. Here's a question. Okay, the MSBA legal year in review family law session that had tech problems, but given as a recorded event. Okay, I'm going to defer to Angela on that one because I don't know the answer about that. Go ahead.
Well, so that was a virtual program that was live, but there were some major technical problems. So the event was being recorded, and those people are still getting their live credit because it was a technical issue and they were signed up and there, but they could not get in properly. So that's a very, very special case because that was on us. Okay. But typically that would not be the case.
Got it. Okay. Sorry, I was trying to address a question that came up. So I want to make sure, to Kelly's question, when Kelly's point about looking at your record, when you log on, the tool will tell you how many credits you have taken and of what type, but it doesn't automatically know that you have the excess specialty credits and how to apply those to the general. You just have to do the math, knowing that, as Joe Lewis calls it, wild card or the ACE will clear up any deficiencies you've got. Okay, and we're going to have Julia. Julia, I want you, if you're ready to address, let's start off with the questions that we've gotten about, oh my God, I got a bar complaint and apparently it sat in my spam folder. Does the Board of Overseers really have a Barracuda thing, or is that, no pun intended, a phishing scheme? I don't understand what the Board of Overseers is doing to me and why they're and all these terrible things, which is not true. But, people are freaking out and we want you to know the process. So go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, great, thank you. So I do want, people should be aware that Bar Counsel's office communicates complaint matters through an encrypted system. And we do that because they're confidential matters under the bar rules. And also, I'm sure you wouldn't want your email hacked and have your, a bar complaint put on Facebook or something. So in any event, so we communicate it through an encrypted system. What you'll get, we have had situations where these emails will come in with a bar complaint attached, they're encrypted, they go into spam, people aren't aware of them for a while. So in any event, what we'll do is you will, if you have a bar complaint, you'll get an email from us that's not encrypted, and it will say, you have an encrypted communication from the Board of Bar Overseers. Please check your spam if you do not get it in your inbox. And please, pay attention to it because you'll have a timeline within which to respond pursuant to the rules. So that's the way we're going to handle that. And that initial email will ask that you send a response so we know you got that initial email. That won't be encrypted. It'll just be a, hey, heads up, you've got something that's coming encrypted. So if you don't get it in your inbox, go look in your spam box. And then when you do that and you get the encrypted email, we have a Barracuda system. Barracuda will prompt you to set up a password. It's not difficult. Even I can do it. And I was born in 1960. It's very easy. And so then you set up that account and then you'll have that ability. You can communicate with us in an encrypted fashion. And the email it will come from will be BC Service. That's the email address we use to communicate on bar complaint matters with people.
And I just want to jump in because there was a question asked, well, why don't we get paper mail anymore? And the reason is because in the pandemic, a lot of lawyers went remote. So we were having the same problem that we're addressing now, but the other version of it. So I never got the bar complaint, Aria, because I'm not in my office. And so y'all didn't get it to me. And of course, we don't know who's working in office and who's working remotely. So because obviously most people were remotely, we transitioned completely to email, which most people were getting. But lately we've noticed some problems with Barracuda, so we thought it was important for y'all to know about the service. We've blasted about it a couple of times in our email blast, but I think with Julia's tweaking here to do an initial email that's not from the higher level of encryption service, which is this Barracuda, we should be able to cover all the concerns there.
That's correct. And again, so, you know, I have had people say to me, now, which emails from the board should I pay attention to and read? Obviously, all of them. but if you get something from BC Service, that's the one that comes from Bar Counsel's office. And that's the one that we would use if we're going to send you a bar complaint that's been lodged against you.
And don't worry, we've all had bar complaints. When I was in private practice, I had bar complaints filed against me. As a new lawyer, when I was at the AG's office, I had bar complaints filed against me. I think even here, I've had complainants, people who didn't think that I prosecuted lawyers hard enough, file complaints against me. So, you know, as a rule, Julia, it's over 85%, I think, are still being dismissed out of your department.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, by and large, the vast majority have no merit at all. Some of them you're not even going to find out about until it's dismissed, because it doesn't even have enough merit to submit to you for a response. So, you know, by and large, most of them are dismissed. You know, I remember when I was a young lawyer, somebody saying to me that, you know, you're doing a good job when you get a bar complaint. So, you know, a lot of them we get are from the party on the other side.
Right.
They're almost none of them. They're very, very small percentage are brought by lawyers. Certainly even a smaller percentage than that brought by members of the judiciary. Most of them, I would say, a large majority come from the party on the other side, or it can come from your client. I would say communication is super important, especially when we're all having to work remotely and we have issues with communication. You can never communicate too much with your client, because I think the more that you notify that person what's going on, the you know, the better a relationship you're going to have, the probably a lower likelihood that you are going to get a bar complaint.
Julia, one last thing I want to make sure we cover, especially as you just mentioned about our work environments, file retention. We had a question about file retention, and
Right.
That regards Rule 1.15. But let's talk about that, and then it looks like it's time for us to wrap up.
Sure, definitely. Yeah, we did have a question about file retention, especially when people are storing things in the cloud. The rule applies no matter if you store a paper file or a cloud file. The rule that you look at is Manual of Professional Conduct 1.15F. And basically it says that when the representation is terminated, you shall return to the client or retain and safeguard in a retrievable format all information and data in the lawyer's possession to which the client is entitled. And then the rule also sets a length of time of 8 years to which you have to comply in order to save files, save copies of things. Certainly, if you have something in your file that's an original document, you don't want to get rid of that, you know, a will or a security or something like that. So, you know, take a look at 1.15F. Certainly, that should be part of your case, is that when the case is closed and the representation is over, that you are getting the client's file to them and keeping a copy. And certainly, if you have original documents, you want to keep those past the 8-year time limit that's set forth in the rule.
Yeah, and here's what you can do is you can always contract with your client for a shorter amount of time. So in your retention agreement, your fee agreement, let's say Jack Clifford, who's now in my frame, hi Jack, wants to have a 3-year time frame. That's what he's going to put in his fee agreement. His client's going to sign on the dotted line, and then Jack's going to keep that file for 3 years, and thereafter Jack's going to go through the file, keep any intrinsically valuable items, and then he can shred it consistent with Rule 1.15 and 1.8. But we don't have time to get into it today, but your work product, if you have questions about whether you should be giving your work product to your client, especially anything that might exacerbate a client's mental illness or exacerbate the relationship between you and the client, you should give us a call on the ethics helpline. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're staffing that helpline, and of course for emergencies. So we actually have 4 of us doing that. That's the first time ever, because I still do the hotline with the Bar Council team, which is Julia, Alan Kelly, and Angela Morse. So speaking of Angela, thank you so much for having us. Speaking of Kelly, thank you, Kelly, for having us. Do you see how I just made that segue?
That was smooth. I liked it. If you have any final questions, feel free to throw them in chat or follow up with Aria or Julia later. Aria and Julia, thank you guys so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Marla. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. One final point on CLEs. I want to remind you all that your bar associations rely heavily on the revenue generated from CLEs for our operations. And just like when you walk around any of our downtowns and you see signs that say buy local, I really strongly encourage you to buy local when it comes to CLEs. If you are paying an out-of-state for-profit company for your CLEs, then your money is leaving the state. Please volunteer to do CLEs, to be a presenter, and please go to CLEs that are offered by the State Bar Association, the County Bar Associations, MACDL, NTLA, the Maine Board of Bar Overseers, local organizations where your money is going to stay in the state and support our local organization. So there's a sales pitch for today. All right. Angela, over to you for some announcements from the MSBA.
Angela, I forgot one thing. I forgot one thing about the Winter Bar Conference, folks. So if you can let me say one more thing when you get to that topic, please. Thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you, Julia and Aria, for joining us. Kelly, thank you very much. You've done a great job this year. We will miss you as president next year. And I appreciated working with you. A few updates for all of you that are joining us. As you can see, we will be closed on Friday the 24th and Monday the 27th for the holiday, so our staff can enjoy that. And then the 31st, because of the first falls on January 1st falls on a Saturday. Registration for the Winter Bar Conference is live. Please go online. Excuse me. Please go online and register. You can also go to the website and print out the PDF version and send it in to us that way. And I'm going to give this over to Aria in just a second, but I want to say, Aria said that you have till February 28th to earn and report your hours for 2021. We have several ethics and one H&D program available at the Winter Bar Conference, in addition to some other ones we have throughout the remainder of this year that you can see on the CLE website. But you can get those at the Winter Bar Conference, and you can apply them, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, to 2021 or 2022. Aria, go ahead.
So at that conference, I just want to make sure that all of y'all know that Professor Deirdre Smith, lawyer extraordinaire, is our Caroline Glassman Award recipient for 2020, 2021, maybe even 2019. She's the most recent recipient since Rebecca Irving. But in any event, I'm really hoping that y'all will join us for that luncheon on Friday the 28th to celebrate Deirdre. And if y'all know her, you know how hard she works behind the scenes. She doesn't want, she's never one to give herself credit, but I'm so thrilled that the Board of Governors chose Deirdre and that the committee initially chose her before that. And please join us to celebrate her on the 28th down at the Westin Hotel. Thank you, Angela and Kelly.
Thanks, Aria. So yeah, that lunch will be at noon on the 28th, the Carolyn Doobie Glassman Award lunch. And finally, next Bar Talk is scheduled for January 12th. President Frank Bishop will be joining us on that day. And thank you all for joining us this year. We really appreciate the support, and we hope that this has been something that has been helpful to you as well.
Thank you to everybody for being here. I wish you all a wonderful, happy holidays and a happy new year. We'll see you next year.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.